Hello and welcome to Cognitions, Speaking the Unspeakable with JP and Stacy D. Stacy D is out today, but I have the wonderful Miss V here with me today.
Miss V's in the house.
We try to get Miss V up in here every week, but Miss V's like, I can't be with y'all every week.
I would love to. I'm sorry. Because y'all are fun. Y'all are wonderful.
We love having you here.
Thank you.
So thank you for being here today. And Miss V brought it to my attention, and this is the topic of today's show, that this is Women's History Month. Is it Women's History Month or Women's Month?
I think it's Women's Month.
It's Women's
International
Month.
Women's Month.
Okay, because everywhere I looked, it said Women's History Month. And so there's Women's History Month, there's Women's Health Month, there was Women's Day, was the 8th. Mr. Walker,
Don't let me tell a story.
Mr. Walker, do you know anything about this? Did you ask your wife? Did you tell your wife Happy Woman's Day?
No.
On the 8th?
No.
Okay.
I think it's Women's History Month because this is what can we do to help further Women's History Month.
All right. And so coming up on the show today, we're going to do both Women's Month and Women's History Month because I want us to deal with both the past and the present. Can we do that,
Yes.
Ms. V? Okay, great. So typically for our viewers, our listeners, we start off with our check-in. Ms. V, do you have a check-in? Because in place of a check-in, I'm diving straight into like women's history.
Okay, then let's dive on in.
Let's dive in. Okay. And so I decided, I actually got excited about this.
I know I saw you
Yeah.
said in the title. I think,
Yeah.
Okay.
I grew up in a family full of women. And so I understand women and I appreciate women. And plus I see a lot of women in therapy. Of course, I see a lot of men in therapy too. And so I'm wanting to tell a little story that starts with the primary woman in my personal history, which is my mother, who was a saint.
Amen.
Yes,
Amen.
my mama was a saint. Okay, so my mother, she had lots of sayings, and she would memorize poems, and no matter what we were going through as kids, there was a saying or a poem. My mother had so many sayings that at my wedding, at every table, we had cards. We had her sayings printed up because it was a saying for everything. And so one of the poems that she would recite to us is called I Am Me. And she would always say, she'd start with the beginning line, and then the final line is I am okay. I am me and I am okay. And this was to, if we were dealing with something that was even remotely related to self-esteem, my mother would roll into this poem, right? I am me and I am okay. Because she wanted to instill healthy self-esteem into her babies.
Was your mom a therapist also?
No, let me tell you, my mother was a foster parent.
Okay.
Right, she was a foster parent. She was a beautician. She owned a beauty shop. She, had a daycare center at one point. Like, she was an entrepreneur. But I ended up a therapist because I was raised by her. Because I saw her addressing issues back in the day, like LGBTQ issues with family members and helping people work through depression. And my mother was an unofficial therapist, like a bootleg therapist.
Okay.
She up in there just doing therapy unlicensed.
Yes.
And so I had to become an official therapist because all that bootleg therapy, you can't, that wasn't gonna cut it. I had to take it all away.
goodness.
And so,
Amazing.
so this poem, I am me and I am okay. And so I started grad school in 95 and I completed in 98 and became a therapist. And so my mother did get to see me actually become a therapist. She passed away later that year. And so she was very proud of me. And, every day she would ask, how are the kids? Because I started off only working on an adolescent treatment team, only seeing kids. This is before I was seeing adults. And after I was on like a sexual abuse team, and so every day she would ask, "How were your sessions? How was the kids?" Because my mama loved kids. And so a few years ago, I was thinking about that poem, "I Am Me and I Am Okay." And I was like, man, I have a client. I need that poem. And so I started researching and looking for it, right? Because I did not have it memorized. Now, there was some poems that, like when I pledged, when you pledge into a historically black fraternity, they make you learn a whole bunch of stuff.
Yes.
And poems is one of those things. And I remember being online one day and they said, y'all have until tomorrow at 6:06 to have Invictus memorized. And I said, Invictus, out of the night that covers me black as a pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. And I could have rolled into the whole poem,
Amen.
right? And so I was like, yeah, I'm chilling tonight
I'm
because I
ready.
already know that. Because I've been hearing my mom say Invictus like my whole damn life. I'm kind of tired of Invictus, actually. So while my line brothers were having to memorize Invictus, I was like, no, I'm chilling because I've been hearing it my whole life. That was my mom in these poems. And so a few years ago, I started looking for this poem. And this is, after being a therapist for some years. And in graduate school, I studied clinical social work because therapists are either clinical psychologists, clinical social workers, clinical counselors, or clinical marriage and family therapists. Those are the 4 types of therapists. And so what I ended up discovering is that this poem was written by a famous family therapist by the name of Virginia Satir. And I had heard about I had studied her and everything in grad school. And so when I'm looking up like I am me and I am okay, I'm trying to find the poem, and then I see like at the bottom by Virginia Satir, I'm like, this is amazing. My mother, one of her favorite poems was written by a therapist who studied the same thing I studied. She was a clinical social worker and a psychotherapist. And so I was like, I wish my mama was here for me to say, Mama, this woman was a therapist. And so Virginia Satir had written this poem for a 13-year-old kid. Apparently was a kid that she was seeing in therapy, most likely, and she wrote this poem for her. And so I started this with, talking about mom, because that's my personal history woman, my mama.
Yes.
But I want to read this poem as a part of Women's History Month, because it really is good, and it really made me, just think about my mama all day today as I was preparing for the show. I am me. My declaration of self-esteem. I am me. In all the world, there is no one else exactly like me. Everything that comes out of me is authentically mine because I alone chose it. I own everything about me, my body, my feelings, my mouth, my voice, all my actions, whether they be to others or to myself. I own my fantasies, my dreams, my hopes, my fears. I own all of my triumphs and successes, all my failures and mistakes, because I own all of me. I can become intimately acquainted with me. By so doing, I can love me and be friendly with me in all my parts. I know there are aspects about myself that puzzle me and other aspects that I do not know, but as long as I am friendly and loving to myself, I can courageously and hopefully look for solutions to the puzzles and for ways to find out more about me. However, I look and sound, whatever I say and do, and whatever I think and feel at a given moment in time is authentically me. If later some parts of how I looked, sounded, thought, and felt turned out to be unfitting, I can discard that which is unfitting, keep the rest, and invent something new for that which I discarded. I can see, hear, feel, think, say, and do. I have the tools to survive, to be close to others, to be productive, and to make sense and order out of the world of people and things outside of me. I own me, and therefore I can engineer me. I am me, and I am okay.
Mm.
And so, anytime my mama even,
That's good.
if she even thought our self-esteem was getting a little shaken, because you know when you an adolescent, you go through things, and she would remind us, you are authentically you, and you are okay. And I want you to know that you are okay, because we have to be able, no matter what we are going through in life, whether we're struggling with the behaviors of others or whether we are struggling with our own mistakes, we have to remind ourselves, okay, I am me. I am authentically me. I am okay.
Don't you wonder? Well, I wonder, and don't you wonder that what if all of our young people could hear this poem?
Yeah.
And not just once, but often. One of the things I'm doing my work on is motivation. My work in my project, my program, and the reason this poem is beautiful because we keep wondering why are our kids being so not just violent but so unmotivated to do whatever, and not holistically, but a lot of them.
A lot. Yes.
Black, white, whoever. And so you keep thinking, because a lot of the kids, they don't know they're okay.
Yes.
And they don't want to be themselves.
Well, and because kids have to be taught that they are okay, that they are authentic. Kids have to be taught how to love themselves.
That's right.
Oftentimes, parents make the mistake of assuming that this is something that unfolds naturally, and that is not the case. You have to instill healthy self-esteem in
That's right.
your children. You also have to be aware of those things which rob them of their self-esteem and self-worth. And a lot of times parents will overlook that. They will allow their children to say things to each other repetitiously that is damaging to their self-esteem, and they dismiss it and say, well, they're just kids being kids. And when I see families in therapy, I address with them that when your kids leave the house, they're going out into a world that is cruel. The world is waiting to attack them. They should not be attacked at home. And so when they are at home, that is when they are supposed to be built up. And you teach your kids to build each other up as they are growing up, so that when they are adults and they are going through difficult things, they can call their brother, they can call their sister for that support. And so this is something to really think about. One of the things I'm going to use Michael Jackson as an example of this. One of the things that they talked about is that as a kid, he was teased about his nose by his siblings. Now, all the Jacksons had them noses.
Right.
But it just goes to show, and they all probably teased each other, but it just goes to show that some kids can be more fragile than others.
That's right.
Because once
That was
Michael,
a big deal to him. His
Oh,
nose, that's why he...
once he got the money, that nose got chipped away at slowly until it was practically no nose there. And multiple nose surgeries, rhinoplasty, and that most likely stemmed from him not having the ego strength to withstand those jokes about his nose. And so what the parents needed to do is say, hey, knock it off. Don't do that, because some of your siblings might be more sensitive and they are holding on to that. I think I read in Janet's book that her nickname was Dunk for donkey. So the humor up in that family was not something that my
Wow.
mother allowed up at our house.
Me
Okay, let me tell
neither.
you, if I'd have called my sister a donkey, I'd have been trying to figure out how the floor came up to meet me. Like,
Right.
did the floor rise or did I fall? And but it just goes to show, and Janet has talked about how she struggled with some depression and some self-esteem issues, but she still was obviously much more resilient than he was. And then you have other members of the family who seem unscathed by whatever it is that they experienced in the household. But parents still need to teach their children to be kind to each other.
That's right.
And the same thing with fighting, because sometimes parents are like, well, they siblings and they fight. We never allowed our kids to fight.
Absolutely.
It's like, who you done? You ain't punching nobody up in here. We're not doing that. We're not doing
Because
that.
whatever they're allowed to do at home,
They're going to
they're
do it outside.
going to do it outside.
Yes. And you want to lay a foundation of them being supportive as they go through life and struggle, And so I appreciate that my sister and I, and one of my sisters passed away years ago. She was 25. But my sister and I have a wonderful relationship. Now I have another sister where we do not have a wonderful relationship, and so I can appreciate, that support. So, but you're right, Ms. V. Kids, and I got a copy of that poem because I want to put it on my wall. But yes, kids need to be taught to love themselves. It doesn't just come naturally.
It does.
And that's how you armor them against a world that is cruel and
Right.
waiting to destroy their psyche.
And it's happening because
Oh, it
a lot
happens.
of kids, they don't love themselves. And they're out here fighting and trying to get validation through the different ways of being mean or fighting or just acting out. They're
That
acting
lack
out.
of self-love. You're talking about how they externalize it in being willing to attack each other, and then you have the other kids who internalize it in the form of depression or self-destructive behaviors. If you haven't been taught to love yourself, then you're going to be willing to ingest chemicals that are poison to your body in pursuit of intoxication. And so all of that, the externalization, the internalization in the form of self-destruction, yes, one of the roots of that is a lack of self-love. Absolutely.
I'm learning, y'all. I'm taking notes. That's all I'm saying, y'all. Okay, I like it. Thank you, because it's important.
It is.
It's so important because when we think about Women's Month, then it's going back to a child's first teacher. It's their parents, but it's their mother.
Right.
I mean, it's their mother, and so not saying that parents are good or bad. I think parents do the best they can with what they have, and I had to learn that from my mom. We didn't have a great relationship. She was a different type of mom, and so through that, though, through struggles and journeys and all of that, I came to understand when I got on the other side of some things that she did the best she could,
Yeah.
and I'm okay.
Therein lies forgiveness.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So I'm like,
Forgiveness lies in the realization of that, hey, my parent did the best with what tools they had to work with.
that's right.
See, you're not building a mansion if you don't have all the tools for that. Some people just build a little, they build what they can build.
Absolutely.
Now, when I work with parents, though, what I address with them is once they become aware that their parenting is lacking in certain areas and that they need more tools, then they need to accept responsibility for getting those tools.
Right.
Now, at that point, I'm kind of preaching to the choir because they're sitting in therapy, which is where they have decided to come to get those tools. But I still have to challenge them to engage in the process.
Absolutely.
Because therapy with me can be intense.
To practice what they're learning.
And to implement it. Yes. Because we're going to cover it And then I'm going to say, okay, I want you to go forth, go out, and then when you come back next week, we're going to talk about how it went. But preparing them to do the work, I have to let them know, like, this is going to be intense.
Yeah.
But you got to do what you got to do once you become aware that your children need and deserve more. But for those who have parents who the parents, they never had that realization. They were like, I just did what my parents did, and they did what their parents did, and we just did what we do, did what we did. And so there is, a form of it. That's a lack of knowledge. And
However, let me ask, and I agree with you, but not even however. And so that makes me ask, with the challenges that in Kansas City, let's just take Kansas City, crime is up, youth crime is way up, whether not just gun violence, but violence,
Yes.
kids not having hope or any of that. So what can we do? Because all parents may not be able to come in to see you or a therapist, or may not be aware. Is there a way that we can spread and share some awareness? And I know we're on the radio, but also everyone isn't listening that needs to be
Right.
listening.
right.
So how can we help our young people to survive? Because we need them to survive.
How can we reach the parents
Yeah, to
in
help
our
them.
effort to help the young people? Well, and that's where those of us who are professionals who are in the community, we have to have some level of responsibility for informing the community of what their options are. Schools are in a position to let parents know, hey, there's a such thing as therapy, and if you can't make it into the office, there's telehealth. Can you turn your phone on? Because your therapist will be on your phone
Absolutely.
while you in your house. And so therapy is much more accessible than it has ever been as a result of the pandemic. Because I never did telehealth video conferencing until the pandemic. All of my clients had to come to the office, or in the past when I did in-home therapy, I would go to them. But now, no, it's accessible. And for parents who are living below the poverty line, there's Medicaid. All insurance pays for therapy.
Got it.
Because a lot of times I'll have parents who will call and say, well, I don't know if my health insurance covers therapy. I'm like, therapy it's health care. So yes, insurance covers therapy. They happily cover therapy because they're like, we don't want people having to get hospitalized, which is going to cost us thousands of dollars per day. So if you're willing to go sit with a therapist for an hour to avoid ending up hospitalized, by all means,
Please.
we're covering that.
That's good. That's
So
good.
yeah, and then things like writing, for me, I've written articles, for magazines. I'm writing books, and then we doing the radio show. This is a community radio station. Everybody has their own way of trying to reach more people.
Right.
And so for me, what I try to do is make sure that when we do this show, that the therapeutic content is there. Yes, we're going to laugh, we're going to play, we're going to have a good time, we're going to act a fool, okay? But at the end of the show, and when I watch it later, I make sure, okay, did the therapeutic content, was it present? Because that is the meat of what I want people to walk away with. Yeah, I want them to be able to have fun and laugh with us as we, doing our thing, but psychoeducation is the primary goal.
I'll tell you, it's interesting. Several of the shows that I've done with you guys, later, my daughter and I will listen to them. And she was like, oh, wait, Mama, that was good, And so that excites me because she's not listening to me. She's listening to you.
She need to be
and
listening to
Stacy D.
you.
I mean,
she better listen to
does,
her mama.
But she's more so, I said, no, they're really professional therapists. But you all give good information that people can practically, just in their lives, whether it's relationships and kids and all. And so it's kind of fun because she's a nurse, so she's a health person, but she also gets something from it. So that excites me. You know,
Yes.
that's why I like, I'm like, so it's good. She likes it too.
Yeah.
Because we need the information.
And
We
that's the
really
goal
need the information.
is, the goal is the dissemination of information. And that's why, one of the things I like about the show is when you look at the list of outlets that Mr. Walker has tapped into, because we're doing the show here on KUAW, but it's also available on Twitch and Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and Periscope, like all these other avenues for people to access this information. And so we have to accept responsibility for being sure that we provide
Absolutely.
good information.
And share it as we're here. Share it.
We're
And
gonna share
again,
the
that's
information.
that's right. And the plug to Mr. Walker and KUAW, knowledge, understanding, and wisdom.
Yes, that's right.
It's good. It's good stuff. It's good stuff.
Okay.
So, I want to, if I can, right here. This has been interesting for me because it makes me think about for Women's History Month. There's a couple of the poems. I want to mention one just because when I read it, I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting, because as a woman, sometimes we, not even just in relationships, but in general, we carry, baggage. We carry the world on our shoulders because we think we have to, all type of stuff. So when I read some of the your pieces, I was like, oh, that's a good one. And so may I please?
Yes, and thank you, Miss V.
No,
because Mr. Walker got a copy of my book. He ain't read a word of it.
I like it. I love
This
to
man
read.
don't. Mr. Walker's like, I gotta listen to him every week on the radio. I already know what's in that book. Mr. Walker, that don't mean that you wasn't supposed to read my book.
Oh, I was supposed to read it.
Yes, Mr.
it's
Walker.
really good. no, it's really good. It's really good.
Mr. Walker uses it as a cup holder.
It's good conversation piece, and you all, it's like this. In case y'all can see us on the radio or Facebooker, it's like this. Gerald Payne, Lessons on Coping, Surviving, and Thriving. And the reason I was excited about it because I work with young people as well, and it's good, easy reading that they also think they understand, but we get to talk about it. And that's why it's exciting to helping them to learn now about self-care and don't take on too much, and as they're going to their careers. And
I had so much fun writing that book. And when friends of mine read that book or my other book, they say,
what's the name of your other book?
the other book, well, I wrote a lot of books.
Really?
Yeah. I've
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. The first book is Therapist Notes. The other books are not. No, I'm in the process. These books are just sitting around waiting to be published.
Oh,
but the
okay,
first
okay,
book
okay.
is Therapist Notes, and then there's
Okay.
It's Like This, and then there is Therapist Notes Revisited, where I was going to write a second edition of Therapist Notes, and I decided instead that I was ready to move on from that, and so what I had written for the second edition, I just added it to the first one and called it Therapist Notes Revisited. So I added like 25 to 30% more content. But
Okay.
that is a book that I started writing on. I was on social media and I would write Therapist Note like at the end of the day. And then I would enter a note on social media of something that I felt like needed to go beyond my office, something
Got it.
that had taken place in therapy that other people might benefit from. And so that's why it's called Therapist Notes. It's my notes. And so a friend of mine, one of my frat brothers, was like, you should write a book because these notes are like, they should be in the form of a book. And so that's how that book came
That's
to be.
exciting.
Yeah, and so, but yeah, this book was a lot of fun to write. The things that make it into the book, anything that is a recurring theme, because I've been a therapist for 25 years now, anything that is a recurring theme That's what makes it into the book. There's a lot of wild things that therapists deal with that are kind of isolated incidents that don't apply to the general public. Like some people coming in there dropping bombs and you like, ain't nobody else dropping this bomb. This book is full of things that have been recurring that more and more people experience, but they don't have access to a therapist. And so for those who cannot come to therapy, I had to take therapy to them. In the
Amen.
form of the
It's
books.
good book club stuff. That's all I'm saying. Me
Book
and my
club.
mentees.
Yes.
We're going to try to do. So I'm going to start here with on page 56 of this amazing book, y'all, because it's Women's Month. And so as I was reading this one, I kept thinking, oh, we do say that. So, and the way that I always say Mr. Payne, the way that he lays them
Just
out.
Gerald.
Gerald. The way that he lays
Gerald
them
or JP.
out. JP. Oh, that's right. Mr. JP. JP. It's he and the client are talking. And so this one is titled Baggage. I'm going to read it. And then, of course, he can do some commentary if he'd like to after we read it because I want to talk about it. So, client. Well, he has baggage, but everybody has baggage. JP? Really? Everybody? Well, here's the question. When it comes to baggage, how heavy is it and can you carry it? And if your partner is carrying it, can they carry it on their own without depending upon you to help carry that load? This is a common issue when it comes to marrying someone who's carrying the heavy weight of large child support payments, co-parenting conflicts with the other parent, badass kids, significant health issues, excessive debt, low credit score, etc. Can you handle that other person's baggage? Are you willing to help carry it? Do you even want to carry it? So the reason that this was good because some of the conversation we've had with Stacy D, and I'm so sorry that you're not here, Stacy D, because some of it's been like dating and fun and stuff like that. But often as women, we do have, baggage, but also he may have baggage as well.
Men have it, yes.
And it is really about, as you shared, do you want, first of all, does everybody really have baggage? And if they do, because everyone's got some,
Can you carry it?
can you carry it?
Yes. Here's the thing about that entry. The reason why I wrote that is because everybody knows that anybody coming into a relationship who's had previous relationships, they have walked away from those relationships with either life lessons, what I call relationship wisdom, or if there are any unhealed wounds, then we call that baggage. And so in there, I was talking about all the different types of baggage that clients come in complaining about, like, oh, his baby mama, she's so awful, oh, his credit score is so low, we wasn't able to get approved for the house. And so what the mistake that people sometimes make is saying, well, everybody has baggage, so I'm just going to accept it because, like, I want this relationship. And that is not enough. You have to look at that particular baggage and ask yourself, can I handle this particular baggage? Because some baggage is too heavy. An example of this is I will oftentimes see people who they have kids and they are in a relationship with someone who has kids, and then they get married and their new spouse does not like their kids. And so now you have all these people living in this household.
They didn't know that before they got married? That the spouse
they
didn't
knew.
like the kids?
Oh, they knew, but they dismissed it because, oh, everybody has baggage. And I want this person. And I'm going to have this person. And the mistake that people make is they sacrifice their children to have their mate. Because you are sacrificing your children if you marry someone who does not like your children. And so I've seen many instances where the couple, they'll have a baby together, and the one who does not like those kids who are there first will give all their love and attention and nurturing to their biological child and treat the step kids like that old saying, treat them like a stepchild, which the saying comes from the fact that some people show differential treatment between children based upon whether or not it is their biological child or if it is a stepchild. And so what I address with them is, okay, we're going to try to work on this situation to see what we can do. But I must tell you, you married someone who didn't like your children.
Right.
You got to step back and take ownership of that. You have to accept some responsibility for the decision that you made. Because now you're caught in the middle between your spouse who doesn't like your kids and your kids who doesn't like your spouse, and your spouse is mistreating your kids. See, that's
and
when it's a
damaging
problem.
your children. Talking about
And
lowering
damaging,
self-esteem.
yes. See, you're not instilling high self-esteem and self-love in your children if you done brought somebody up in the house who does not like them or value them. And so I'll say, we're going to work on this, but I got to address that with you, because that's my approach to therapy. Like, yes, I'm here, we're going to do problem solving, we're going to do all these clinical interventions. At the same time, I do have to keep it totally real.
Absolutely. In a
You
system with
selfishly chose
also
what
prevention.
you wanted,
yeah.
and you sacrificed your children, and you thought that it would just get better. These are not things that oftentimes get better. You move forward and got married, regardless of the fact that you knew that this was a problem.
Right.
And the thing that I explain to parents is, your kids didn't ask to be born. You chose to have them. And when you have kids, when you become a parent, you give up your right to live your life on your own terms and have what you want or who you want. You don't get to have what you want and who you want until your kids are grown and out of the house. Now, see, if you wait, because I do have clients, they wait till their kids are grown, and as soon as them kids leave for college, they run out and they get that man that they've been wanting, or they get that woman they've been wanting, but they're not bringing that person into the house with their
Absolutely.
children.
Absolutely.
And when the kids don't like that person, or that person doesn't like the kids, it's not that big of a deal, because it's like, well, y'all grown.
Right. And you don't live here anyway. So you
And you don't live here, your parent can have who
meet
they
for
want.
lunch. We can meet it separately.
That's
Or
right.
whatever.
But I explain to parents, you don't get to bring kids into the world and then selfishly decide that you're going to have what you want, and then they end up suffering.
Absolutely.
So yes, that excerpt
piece.
from my book about baggage, do not just say, well, everybody has baggage, so I'm going to move forward with this relationship. You need to carefully analyze the baggage and the effects that it will have upon you, upon your children, upon any involved parties. That's how you can figure out, ooh, is this too heavy? If it's too heavy, don't do it.
And then how do people, oh, and that's good. How do people, I think about credit's a big thing now, with people.
Credit is a big thing.
It's people are their income, credit, debt, all those things. I'm like, that's all real important. And so in evaluating, that means you have to ask each other questions in this dating process. A lot of people, they don't want to talk. They just want to have fun.
And they definitely don't
fall
want
in
to talk about their
love and
credit
do
score.
whatever. But you have to, if you're planning to build together. It goes back to the values of, so what do you want to do with me anyway? What do I want to do with you? So
Yeah.
before we even start getting out there doing all this dating, so what am I wanting to do? So that's what it made me think about, all of that. And not just with that, but with friends even. Just your friends, the friends you choose to hang out with and socialize with. Because whoever you, just friends, hanging out with and socializing with, then people are going to either assume you're like them. Is that okay? Is that, or they're like you. Is that okay?
Right.
Because that's that social network you're bringing around your
You have to look at
kids.
all of that. You have to look at everything you are exposing your kids to.
Absolutely.
You don't get your life back until your kids are successfully raised and out of the house.
Absolutely.
You don't get to, I'm going to have a life.
You
You ain't having a life.
have no
Your
life.
heathen is 13. You got 5 years to go before you get to have a life.
You have to sacrifice. I agree. You have to sacrifice.
You have to make those sacrifices.
Lord.
Now, some baggage that I usually do not think is too heavy is the credit score. And I'm going to tell you why. I have people who will eliminate somebody for credit score before they eliminate them for having bad interactions with their children, which says a lot about those people's values. But when it comes to the credit score, what I say to people is, okay, before you end this relationship because this person has a low credit score is something that can be fixed.
That's right.
Now, character flaws. Okay, somebody who want to abuse kids and call your kids little MFs. See, that's a character flaw. There's something amiss within their spirit. But like the credit score, no, they can work on that. Now, in looking at that baggage, you want to have discussions and conversations about, okay, can we talk about how your credit score got like this? Because if it got that way because they went through a bad divorce, and you know, a divorce wreaks financial havoc on people. If they have, that's different than people who have a life pattern and a habit of spending in a way and not paying their bills that has affected their credit score. See, that's when the baggage of the credit score is too heavy. It's like, no, you have a life pattern of financial irresponsibility.
And they might then I might bring you down, or you vice versa, if I don't.
Because that's just how they, and oftentimes in those instances, when I'm meeting with those couples, the person who meets that typology, they don't even get it. They're like, I don't care about my credit score. See, you're not a good fit with this person who does care.
Absolutely.
Because they want to have like a nice home and all those sorts of things, and you are recklessly spending and not paying your bills. That person is the kind of person that you might have to say, ooh, this baggage is a little heavy, compared to the person who's like, I went through a bad divorce and I had to take on some of my spouse's debts and da-da-da-da and da-da-da, and that's why my credit, well, that can be rebuilt. That's isolated. That's an isolated incident of low credit score. But you got to take a look at all the baggage.
So, thank you. So, what about? And I don't want to call this baggage, but anyway, but it can be depending on who the individuals are. So, what if you have someone? I'm laughing, but so you have individuals. You meet people, and a man's like, "Oh, she's great personality, blah blah blah." But she's a little overweight. Or a woman can do that too. Great personality, but he's a little overweight. So I would tell you my take on it first, and then I want you to give me your thought.
Because this is common also.
Yes.
People just don't talk about it.
Right. I want to talk about it because it's like, but if you really like the person, you think they're cool and everything, but but I don't know, is that build? So I'm like, if it's a lady with a guy, well, then why don't you still go out and cook for them, or you don't have to say conversations like, man, you're big. Same way with a man. If you like someone, because I remember the show Why Did We Get Married? And so remember at the very end where the lady, she got divorced, she had to walk down the mountain or whatever, and the man who was the mountain ranger or whatever he is, they worked out together and everything because she was happier. And so those are the stories that I think they can really happen.
They worked together on the weight issue.
That's right.
But they were able to do that because he valued her first, regardless of her physical appearance.
Absolutely.
And so when it comes to relationships, this is something that you have to find out during the dating process, is what people's priorities are and what they value. If you are dating someone who values you for who you are at your core, who you are on the inside, regardless of your weight, see, y'all can work through that. But there are people out there who are like, I don't have an attraction to a person who is overweight. That is the significance of weight to that person, when it doesn't matter what's at your core, what's in your heart, your spirit. None of that overcompensates for your weight. that is not someone who is a good fit
Absolutely.
for you. See, y'all's puzzle pieces, something else, which is another analogy.
I know, I
Because the
saw
book
that.
is just, it's a book of analogies. And that's somebody who your puzzle pieces don't fit with theirs. Now, I have a friend who, he is one of those people. He cannot and will not date a woman who is overweight. Now, he be getting chunky as hell himself. And so that's the double standard, is he's expecting women to look beyond the number that's on the scale when he stands on it. But he can't look beyond the number when she stands on it. And his explanation is, well, I can't help it that I'm not attracted to someone who is overweight. And he has ended relationships because, you know, as we get older, metabolism starts slowing way down to the point where you really ain't, I don't even think I'm metabolizing food. I'm just like, damn, am I metabolizing food? If I look at food, Ms. V, I'm like, if I look at food, I gain weight. And so he has been in a position where women have started to gain weight, and he'll give them a warning, like, okay, you might want to pull this together a little bit. I think this is getting a little out of control. What you gonna do? I bought you a gym membership.
Does he go to the gym with them?
No, he don't do that. He's sending them to the gym. Okay, he's at home chunky, and so
That's funny because, like,
now I will say he is concerned about his weight, and he will go into a mode where
When
he pulls
he's
his
ready.
weight together.
Right.
When he's ready. But I have seen him end some relationships
dang.
because she
Meaning
did not
several.
lose weight.
So,
Oh yeah. And so, you know,
that's funny.
not to judge people have their value system.
right.
I just ask that when you are dating someone, don't be so impressed and infatuated with a person that you overlook those types of red flags. These are blaring,
That's
bright
a big
red
one.
flags. These are flags as big as the green screen behind us. Like, you can't ignore that this person. And here's the significance of this,
That's funny.
is that our bodies are imperfect.
Right.
If you enter into a relationship and you stay with somebody and y'all together till death do you part, you think that person's going to have the body they had at 30 years old when they 60, 70, 80? And so because our bodies begin to fail us,
Yes.
things start getting
Even our
saggy.
organs and everything.
Everything. Internally and externally, you have to start taking meds for this and meds for that, and this starts sagging and that starts sagging, and you get wrinkles here, and hell, look at me, my hair ran off my head like it was a damn fire, right? Now, my wife, I had hair when I met this woman,
Amen.
but fortunately, and let me tell you, my wife got hair down her back, okay?
Amen. Yes.
But fortunately, she didn't care that my hair ran up off my head like it was a fire,
Amen.
like somebody was shooting at every strand. Because and I'm not the weight that I was when we started. Like, you know, I've gained weight and lost hair. And yeah, I know how to pull the weight part together, but I can't make that hair come back. And
You
so
can get a.
I'm gonna have to get a wig or something. I'm going to give me a damn wig, okay, if this woman want hair. Fortunately for me,
That's funny.
she loves me for who I am on the inside, because as
Amen.
we get older, who we are on the outside begins to fail us. And all that is left is what's on the inside, our brain and our heart.
Absolutely.
And so you want to date someone. Listen, I need for our female, because this is Women's History
Women's
Month,
Month,
Women's
History
Day,
Month.
Women's Month. This is Women's Women in March, okay?
Yes.
Please date people who place more value on who you are internally, because however good you look externally, that is going to fade. You can't be walking around trying to convince a man well, you see how Janet look at 57, that's how I'm gonna look. Because you might not look like
Right,
Janet at
right.
57.
You ain't got Janet's money.
You ain't got Janet's money. You ain't gotta go on tour and dance for 2 hours straight. So this is about, yeah, you gotta date people who value what you value. Now, if somebody's willing to work out with you and they working out too, and it's about being healthy, but they still love you for who you are internally. They like, well, nah, I want us to be healthy, but I ain't gonna leave you because you gained weight. Now, I'm not. It's not that important. I want my baby. I want my baby.
So I have a question. So as we women, I know a lot of women out there are thinking about, so where do I meet these people who will value me for my internal self and the who I am and all of that stuff? And I share with a lot of my with my mentees and myself and others. A lot of it is, in my opinion, because I do want the opinion of men, therapists, is you have to, we have to do what we're doing. Whether it's at work or volunteering, we have to be who we are so that people can see what we value. And then normally you will, well, I won't say normally, hopefully you will run into other people, especially when you're volunteering, you're doing things, fraternities, sororities, or whatever. You're going to meet people who will hopefully have similar values, and then I think it's more likely to find a match.
And you have to put yourself in those circles.
Yeah.
You have to expose yourself to people who are like-minded, who share the level of maturity, who share the value system that you share.
Right.
And I wrote about this also. I don't know if it was in that book or if it was in the previous book, but the mistake that people sometimes make is, they are trying to find Mr. Right or Mrs. Right really in like all the wrong places, and then wonder why they're coming up short. You said, what I know what's in this book is an analogy about the needle in the haystack.
Oh.
And it's like finding a good man is like finding a needle in a haystack. What pinners on your damn haystacks? Like if you at the club, yes, it's a needle in that haystack. Okay. Compared to if you are at other places, like some of the places you mentioned, being involved in organizations and fraternities and sororities and going to different community events and things where there's going to be a lot more needles. You got to choose your haystacks correctly.
Yes, I like that.
Yeah.
That's pretty fun. I'm going to share that with my mentees because, again, they're out here, the professional women and, working, doing all these things, and we just can't find nobody in Kansas City. No.
You got to be in the right circles.
Where you going and stuff like that. So,
yeah. I met my wife. She is a mental health professional. I met her as a part of mental health. And the relationship I was in before her was a woman that I met in the mental health profession. And the relationship I was in before her and the one before her. Like my past 4 or 5 relationships, we met in mental health circles.
That's right.
Because that's the circle I move in. And that's the circle where I found women who value what I value.
That's right.
As a younger person, yes, I was at Body Works thinking I was going to find my needle in that. And let me tell you, what came up out that haystack, I was like, ooh, that didn't go well. You want to talk about a bad fit. And so, and as a single person, I also had a rule that I never met women, even simple things like I'm not going to meet women when I'm in my car. Now, when I was in Hoopties, I was okay with meeting women because I knew, like, ooh, she clearly don't give a damn. Because I only got 3 wheels on this thing. But once I was working and driving nicer cars, you don't meet women at the stoplight if you in a nice car because you don't know if she's wanting you or the car.
Right.
See, And so when it comes to people, like, how do you meet somebody? You have to be willing to leave your home, but you have to be careful about where you go after you leave your home.
Absolutely.
And some people, like the
Yay.
Stacy D, Stacy is an exception because she meets men everywhere. She meet men at Quick Trip. I'll be like, damn. And they oftentimes are somewhat eligible to date. But for most people, they're not just constantly meeting people like that. Like, she's
Yes.
constantly meeting people. I'm like, how is she always meeting somebody?
She,
That is
I mean,
not
she's
the
a
case.
magnet in that, you know, she exudes the beauty and the confidence, and so people they see, you know, like
People are drawn to
her-
high self-esteem.
absolutely,
And the D's
absolutely.
self-esteem is very high.
Absolutely.
It is
Amen.
very high.
Amen.
Yes.
Rub some
As
on
it
me.
should be.
Amen.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, I think it's exciting, and that's why all these I get excited because it's fun, and so just telling women to think about that, and if it ain't, you know, that ain't what you're looking for, then we talk about some financial literacy maybe next Tuesday, because there's a whole lot we need talking.
That's right.
To us
That is
about,
right. That
you
is
know,
right.
because I think part of the baggage we must think about sometimes is, yes, I think men are visual, and then the whole value piece and all of that, but also I think it's like we want people to bring something to the table. I think
Right.
men also want women to bring something to the table.
Oh, yes.
And not meaning paying their bills and all that, but it's like, you know,
No, she got to come correct, too.
absolutely. And I think I'm just trying to make sure people understand that it's two people, you know, in order to really make it and buy and invest and
Right.
go on all this, it does take two. It's not about finding someone to take care of you if the value is what you're really looking for. You wanna
Right.
be
And
valued
it's
through it
it's
all.
a question of, this is something from Mr. Walker, how much time do we have?
About 3 minutes.
Okay, real quick.
Okay.
This is something from was there any other excerpts that we wanted
No,
want to
go
go
ahead.
over? Okay.
I'll come back.
Because something that has been coming up in therapy is I'm now seeing a lot of women who have met Mr. Right. They are like, this man checks off out of the 10 boxes that my mom and daddy told me to look for. He done checked off 8 of them.
Yes.
She's like, oh, he's 80% of what I want, but I'm still not happy. And here's the reason why. Because when it comes to, every single person knows what their boxes are that need to be checked off. What people fail to realize is that all these boxes are not the same size. Some things are more important than other things. And so a person may check off 8 of your 10 boxes, but some of them boxes are tiny. If that person has not checked off a big box, yeah, he's checked off 8 out of 10 boxes, but that's not truly 80% of what you want. He could have checked off 8 out of 10 boxes, but he's still only 50% of what you want, because a lot of the boxes are small and the big ones are still unchecked. And so when it comes to dating, it's okay, because a lot of times these women, they continue in the relationship because they're like, all my girlfriends are saying, how could you not want him? He's wonderful. He's perfect. He's this, he's that. He's what every woman's looking for. But if that box is passion or mutual intellectual stimulation, if that box is so big and it's not checked, that even though he's checked off 8, he's coming in at 60%, which is a D. Damn it, that's a D. And so it's difficult because they're like, I can't throw this fish back. I can't throw this fish back into the lake because
plenty
he
of
is
fish,
what
though.
every woman. It's like, well, he's every woman's dream, but he's not your dream.
Right.
Throw him back, because he also deserves someone who he is their dream.
Mm-hmm.
You're settling. And yeah, he's Mr. Right, but he's not Mr. Right for you,
That's right.
because the right boxes ain't checked
That's
off.
good. All right, y'all. We're gonna be listening to this. We're gonna be playing it back. This is gonna be good.
Yeah, and I was like, man, when this came up in a session last week, and I was like, man, that would have been a good analogy for the book, but it's too late. But that is a way to look at it. You got to look at like the size of the boxes that are getting checked off.
Absolutely.
All right.
Like.
That is our show for today. Miss V, I'm sorry I didn't get to the other excerpts that you had, but we'll get to them some other
We
day.
will, because we're going to bring the book back. This is some good.
Yeah, let me tell you, we can fill a whole show with what I covered in
know.
that book. 25 years of therapy.
I know.
I tried to cover a lot. All right. Thank you all for joining us. And remember, worry about nothing and pray about everything.
Amen.
Thank you.
And how they get your book?
Oh, it's on Amazon.
Amazon.
Yes.
It's on Amazon.
I mean, you can get
yeah.
it in bookstores, but it's the markup is big.
I just want to share. Y'all should
And
get it.
yes, and so yes, my book, both of my books, all three of them are available on Amazon. So thank you, Ms. V, for all of your positive feedback about the book, because that's the goal, is for it to speak to people taking therapy outside of my office,
Amen.
because I love therapy. All right. Thank you, everyone, and God bless.
God bless. Good night.